and welcome back to Rue's Life on this glorious March day. We've got blue skies, sunshine, fluffy white clouds. It was actually bouncing down with rain all night and a little bit blustery, but just over the last couple of hours it's really settled and it's gorgeous. Now, I haven't a huge amount going on here at the moment because it's not really quite spring yet, but it's been a really good time to be obviously planning. I mean, we're so excited, aren't we, to get growing, but also to reflect. Because I've recently put in some new pathways, a new bed, we've got other things that we're planning. It's really been a good time for me, as I say, to reflect and to project. And I've just been having a really good old think about, how I got to this point. And I have to say, I'm really proud of this little plot. When I first came to look around the farm, I actually came on my own the first time, and I totally fell in love with it. And we hadn't decided at that point, obviously, where anything was going to go. I came back again with Chris, we fell in love with it, and of course, the rest is as they say, history. We knew that we wanted to have a polytunnel. I hadn't really thought more beyond the polytunnel, if I'm honest. My sister had a polytunnel much bigger than this one and did pretty much all of her growing under that tunnel. She's since moved properties and does things very differently now. But my plan was just to have a nice big polytunnel and to grow in it. And the rest of this plot has kind of evolved over time. And as I say, I'm super proud of it. I've pretty much done, apart from the construction of the polytunnel and a little bit of help occasionally, I've pretty much constructed all of these beds and created all of this plot by myself. And that's something that, if I'm honest, looking back, if you'd shown this to me and said, you're going to create that on your own, single-handedly, I don't think I'd have quite believed it. And I think that confidence is something that we really need, and belief in ourselves, to be able to grow. So that brings me nicely to the title of this video, which is My Secrets to Successful Growing. And it's going to be different for all of us. We're all going to be in different locations, different parts of the world. Our plots may be allotments, gardens, plots like this. Whatever you've got, it's going to be different. But I think if I can just share some of my experiences that have really been quite pivotal in getting me to where I am and being able to have successful crops and harvests. Particularly, I'm talking today about vegetable growing. So as I say, coming here and setting myself up, for me, I really did enjoy, I had an allotment years ago and I really did enjoy that. But I think for me, one of the things I got hung up about was what everybody else was doing. And even though I'm not on an allotment plot now, something that we now have with social media is that allotment feel. There's all of that knowledge out there, and we can see what other people are sowing and growing and doing and how they're creating and doing. And I think for an awfully long time, we're going back a lot of years now, I think I perhaps got a little bit too hung up on what everybody else was doing. And also, am I doing it properly? And the biggest key for me is learning that what is properly. There really is no proper. Yes, we don't want to be starting seeds too soon. We've all done it. We're so keen to get going. We start growing things, get our seeds in, and we germinate them in the house in January and February because we're itching to get going, and we just end up with a load of leggy seedlings. And of course, even if you have a heated polytunnel or a heated greenhouse, you might be able to get your plants going and established and not have leggy seedlings, but you've got to think ahead as to where am I actually going to be putting them. And if they're coming out into beds, there's no point having these perfect seedlings or plants ready to put if you've got nowhere to put them, because you then got to put them outside and the conditions outside aren't warm enough, we're not ready. So there are some right and wrongs, but really most things are flexible. And the biggest thing I've learned is we learn by our mistakes. I've sown things that aren't particularly, it's not the season for growing them, it's not the right time of year, or I've not put them in a place they ought to be, but I've still had successful harvests. A really good example recently, and I'll pop a link above, was my leek harvest that I've just had. So these were leeks that I started in trays in the polytunnel. They then were transplanted and they eventually went into a tub. And they sat in that tub for far longer than I ever planned for them to be. And I thought that when I harvested them, they were going to be, they can sometimes go quite bulbous at the bottom. I thought they were going to be woody. And actually, something that I've learned, I'm just going to pop my tea down for a minute, was that by growing them in the smaller space, it actually slowed down the growing process, and I ended up with some beautiful, tender, delicious leek because I grew them in a smaller space. Had they been in the ground, they probably would have got woody. So that's something I'm going to do again. I'm going to grow leek in a tub, and then if I don't get a chance to harvest them when I plan to, they can just sit there over the winter months and I can harvest them in the spring. So that was something that certainly wasn't by the book, certainly wasn't something that somebody would recommend, but something I'm definitely going to be doing again. So as I say, number one for me is not getting too hung up on what everybody else is doing. And moving on from that, this year I've actually decided not to grow tomatoes. I think I may do one variety. I like a few fresh tomatoes. Chris doesn't. I'm not particularly good at processing them. I tried canning them, and to be honest with you, canning's something that terrifies me. I know, that if you don't get it right, you can make yourself ever so poorly. And it's something I'm sure if I practiced I could get right, but I just don't have the time or the space, in fact, for the whole process of canning things, putting things in jars. And that's not a way that I personally can preserve tomatoes. The only way that Chris and I really eat tomatoes is as a sauce. So a passata, or what we tend to have is a can of chopped tomatoes. And to be honest with you, the amount of tomatoes I would have to grow to make decent sauces, which I would then probably freeze, it's going to take up a huge amount of growing space. It's really cheap to buy a tin of tomatoes or a packet of passata. So I'm not growing them. I'm not growing tomatoes this year. As I say, I might do one plant that I can just pick a few fresh ones off for myself, because when my cucumbers are ready to harvest, I do love to make a Greek salad. So some homegrown onions, some cucumber and some tomato. Oh, delicious. Little bit of feta cheese. Delicious. So, decision. I'm not growing tomatoes this year. And I will see the Facebook posts and the YouTube videos of everybody's amazing tomatoes. And there will be a little bit of me thinking, oh, should I have grown tomatoes this year? But no, I'm not going to eat them. So what's the point? What's the point in growing these tomatoes, taking up a huge amount of space, just because everybody else is doing it? So the real secret, if you will, to my gardening success is doing it my way, finding a way that works for me. And there's always going to be people that will jump on posts that I might put on social media or all these YouTube videos and say, you're doing that wrong, you should have done this, you should have done that. But it works for me. And you know what, even when it doesn't work, I've still had fun and I've still learnt something. And something that really saddens me, I have over the years been on multiple social media allotment and growing groups. And I'm so glad now that I found this fabulous YouTube community. And also off the back of this, there are some awesome growing groups out there. We've got the fabulous Liz Zorab, we've got Jane Kelly, we've got Erica from Erica's Little Welsh Garden, we've got Vivi Gregory, and we've got the fabulous Richard and Paul and Planet Vegetaria. And I'm sorry if I've missed any of you out, but they're the ones that really stick in my mind because they are such friendly, supportive spaces. But I've been on so many where, you know, somebody will put, you know, maybe a new grower, maybe they're not a new grower, but they'll pop a little post on. It might be a question that they're asking, or it might be that they're really proud of something that they've achieved and they put a photograph on. And before you know it, there are hundreds and hundreds of negative comments, really very, very derogative and negative. And it's enough to put you right off growing, quite frankly. You know, can you imagine how you would feel if you proudly achieved something and you put a photograph on and all you get is you've done that wrong, it's too early to be doing this, you don't know what you're doing, it's the wrong this, it's the wrong that. You're going to go away feeling pretty despondent. So I've actually come off all of those groups. Yes, I watch YouTube channels. Yes, I go on the lovely channels and I read books. And I love listening to Gardener's Question Time on the radio, on Radio 4. I really enjoyed going to the Malvern Autumn Show. There are so many places where we can get information. But what has really helped me is just having a go. Picking up bits of information and then having a go and doing it my way. And that really, really has been the secret to my growing success. Trial and error, successes and failures. And I can honestly say that the last few years, things have really come on and developed for me. And I'm getting closer and closer to my ambition, which is to be self-sufficient in vegetable growing. Apart from those choices that I make, like tomatoes, growing less potatoes, because again, I can pick up a bag of Welsh potatoes pretty cheaply, even organic ones. And I know it's not quite the same because you don't know where they're coming from. And I really do love growing my own vegetables because I know exactly where they've come from. And I love the fact they're not packaged, there's no plastic, there's no miles. It's literally my seeds start off in the polytunnel, into the soil, and they grow. But I don't mind buying the odd little thing. So as often in life, this secret that I have isn't really a big secret. It's no kind of mind-blowing wow moment, but it's simply doing things your own way, being brave enough to just give things a go. We can get really hung up on, you know, where the sun is and the size of the plot and which bed goes where and tall things and small things. And yes, of course, we have to take those things into account. But I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. When we put the polytunnel up, the only thought pattern was I wanted it close to the house so that we had access to water, and also I didn't want to be having to stomp for miles to get to it, so I could be popping in and checking on things regularly. I wanted it somewhere where it wasn't too exposed to the elements, particularly the wind, and then obviously it was going to get a decent amount of sun. But I didn't give it too much thought. We essentially decided to put it along the hedge line because we thought that would help to keep it sheltered from the winds, and that was the main reason why the polytunnel went where it went. And the second reason it went there was that was the flattest part of this paddock. The rest of the beds have just evolved from there, and I've literally made it up as I went along, and I'm really thrilled with the results. So my advice, my secret to successful growing is just get out there and do it. Get some seeds, get some compost, put your seeds in, watch them germinate. If they don't germinate, have another go. Don't think you're a failure. You know, there's so many elements that can mean that they will or they won't germinate. You know, sometimes you put them in and it's a glorious sunshiny day, and then, as I've actually done with my last batch of seeds, the weather suddenly turns, we get frosts, freezing temperatures overnight, and not enough sun. And maybe some of them won't germinate. So I've got some more seeds, I'll pop them in. So it's just, you know, be brave, be bold, do what feels right, go with your gut instinct. By all means, watch videos, read books, go on social media, ask questions. If you're on an allotment, it's a great opportunity to have a little look and see what other people are doing and ask advice. But ultimately, it's up to you to do it your way. And don't be put off if somebody tells you you're doing it wrong. Somebody says you shouldn't be doing it that way, you should be doing it this way. Have the courage of your convictions and say, well, thank you very much, but I'm happy doing it this way. And you know what? When you actually get a successful crop, when you've done it your way, it's really, really satisfying. And you might just find, you know, that person that said you were doing it wrong might just think, oh, actually, that was really successful. That worked really, really well. So I think, you know, as a species of human being, it does matter to us what other people think, but try and, you know, shelve that and just crack on and do things your way. So this is a really good opportunity for me to say, first and foremost, thank you so much to all of you that follow me on this channel. Do remember to hop over to my Facebook page and also to my Instagram. There are links in the bio section of my YouTube channel, but I'll also pop them in the description of this video. And also to those of you here in the UK or in other parts of the world where we're coming into our spring, best of luck for your growing season ahead, and do please share with me any of your tips and hints and things that you have learnt or achieved over the years. And also, by all means, I welcome any questions. If there's anything that I can help you with, if you want to ask me a question, I'm more than happy to answer or to give advice. But don't forget, you don't necessarily have to take it. So for now, I'm going to sit and soak up this sunshine, finish my cup of tea. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you all again soon. Whoop-a-doo. What the actual... When we came to the farm, expecting this, you know, really